Hi guys, let's talk about James Joyce. He was born in 1882 in Dublin and was educated at Jesuit schools in Dublin and also attended the Trinity College University. He got a degree in foreign languages. He studied French, German and Italian apart from English. As for the Irish question, it was from Dublin as Yeats, but it was contrary to what to Yeats' ideas. Yeats was the poet that wrote Easter Monday, 1916, celebrating the heroes of the Irish rebellion of 1916 that had been the rebellion had been crushed and the leaders had been sentenced to death and so become sort of heroes. And Yeats had encouraged the Irish Renaissance that was a sort of national Irish proud and the consciousness of the old Celtic Irish identity that was essential for the Irish to develop their nationalism to fight against the British. Joyce established on the continent when he was very young, that is, he settled in Paris, and he felt a European much more than an Irishman. He came back only to Dublin only in 1903 on occasion of his mother's death, and on that occasion he met and fell in love with Nora Barnacle. In Joyce's life, details, symbolical details are very important, and so the first date with Nora Barnacle became, that was the 16th of June 1904, became Bloom's Day of Ulysses. Ulysses was a novel that he wrote later, and that was set in just one day. That was Bloom's Day. That is the day of Bloom, that was the protagonist of the work. That also to remark the revolution of time that Joyce acted in his works, because differently from the past, Ulysses lasts just one day. That is, all the story is set in just one day, that is the 16th of June 1904. But let's go back to Joyce's life. He settled in Trieste, in Italy, where he made friends with Italo Svevo. Well, Italo Svevo was born in 1861, so he was more than 20 years older than James Joyce, but they became best friends because they shared the common interest of literature, of their modernist ideal. James Joyce was the mother tongue teacher for Italo Svevo, that was studying English in Trieste in that period, but they shared their passion for literature and encouraged each other in the moment of discomfort and disappointment. James Joyce had some financial problems when in Trieste, and his brother came and tried to support him and to ease James from his economical problems. Joyce's main works are Dubliners, published in 1914, The Portrait of the Artist as a Young Man, published in 1916, and Ulysses, that was published in Paris in 1922, but that immediately underwent an accusation of pornography, of alleged pornography, because in the end Joyce was freed from the accusation, from the charge of pornography. and the novel was finally published in 1934 in the USA and in 1936 in Britain. And the last work was Finnegan's Wake, published at the eve of the Second World War in 1939. All his works are set in Ireland, and they are a realistic portrait of the life of ordinary people doing ordinary things and living ordinary lives from a cosmopolitan point of view. That is, in spite of what we find in the following slide, that is sentence written by Joyce that says, "When I die, Dublin will be written in my heart." You can see it in the background of the second slide. So he loved Dublin very much, but he described Dublin from a different point of view, that at the eye of a superficial person seemed mostly as a betrayal of his hometown of Dublin, because he described the life of Dublin and of Dubliners as commonplace, as banal, as mean. He underlined the narrow-mindedness of Dubliners, and he blamed for this situation, for this mental paralysis of Dubliners, the Catholic Church. Now let's discuss the subjective, the new techniques used by Joyce in his works. First of all, let's talk about the subjective perception of time that was influenced by great philosophers and scientists of the time, as Bergson, James, and Einstein. In his works, there are different points of view, that is, the story is said from different points of view and not through the omniscient writer. He is much more interested in more than in the photographic description of more than in the photographic description of reality, in the impressions and thoughts that an outer event at a given moment has caused in the inside of the character. That is, when he describes an outer detail, he is not interested in that detail, that event in particular, but he is interested in it because of the effect that it has had on the mind of the character, and so because of the stream of consciousness, of thoughts, feelings, and emotions that it has caused in the mind of the character. The events are described by clues, indizi. That is, there isn't a great mediation from the writer that tries usually to explain the story. The details, on the contrary, are understood, are gradually realized by the reader through the clues, gli indizi, that he can find in the stream of thoughts, in the stream of the mind of the character. And so only gradually the reader manages to put the puzzles of the story together. The stories start in medias res, that is, they do not start from a very beginning, but from a certain point from which the reader tries to understand from the clues given through the thoughts of the characters what is happening, tries to understand the details of the story. Of course, Joyce is much more interested in introspection rather than description, and he evolves his technique from the realism and the discipline, the prose of Dubliners, through an exploration of characters' impressions and points of view, through the use of free direct speech or free direct thought, to the interior monologue, with two levels of narration to give a realistic framework to the characters' shapeless thoughts. Only in the last period of his life, and so in the later works, he reaches the extreme interior monologue that we can find, for example, in the final part of Ulysses, in the monologue, for example, Molly's monologue that we read some lessons ago, and Finnegan's Wake, where the language is broken into a series of words, of sentences without punctuation, without a logical or chronological order, without a grammar connection, into infinite puns, giochi di parole, and reality becomes the place of the psychological projection of the characters. Dubliners is a collection of short stories that describe Dubliners as afflicted people. It is a collection of 15 short stories dealing with human situations and leading to a moral, social, spiritual revelation and to epiphany. The stories are arranged in 4 groups: childhood, adolescence, mature life, and public life, and the main theme is paralysis. So he analyzes the theme of paralysis, that is paralysis physical, resulting from external forces, or moral, linked to religion, politics, and culture. It is a common theme of all the 15 short stories. The paralysis is seen from a different point of view, from a child, from an adolescent, from a mature, an adult person. The 15 short stories are different from each other as for the stories are different, but what is common is the techniques and the themes, the symbols and the structure that are the same. There is an abundance of details and even the most unpleasant and depressing ones. This is to underline how depressing, how commonplace, how mean and banal the life of Dubliners is. The paralysis is present in all the short stories, but a very important technique that he uses is the epiphany, that is also present in all the short stories and that can be considered the climax of each short story, and it is the moment when the character suddenly realizes the paralysis. It is a sudden spiritual manifestation caused by a trivial external object or situation that leads the character to a sudden self-realization about himself or the reality around him. The first instinct, once the character understands the state of paralysis in which he lives, is escape. But all the characters of these short stories fail to escape. They don't manage, they are not brave enough to cut the chains that the moral, the cultural, religious and the political chains that chain them to their life. So they fail to escape and they stay tied to the society where they live. Also the linguistic register suits the age of the character who is telling the story, because the story is always said from the point of view of the character and to his social class and to the role that the character has in that short story. And that's all for today. Bye.